ahead and get started. It sounds like we've got everybody that's going to be joining us. So welcome to the meeting in whatever form you're joining us in. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1.3 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. No action may be taken upon a matter raised. Is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment?
I do.
Okay, please stand up and give us your name and.
Okay, Tara Leland, first grade teacher, Spring Creek Elementary. I'm just speaking because it's my right, and maybe there's other teachers that feel the same way, and I don't even know if I should, because I don't even know who to trust and what you are even capable of doing, since we're being affected by a global pandemic. But I do not agree with the decision to prevent children from going to school in person. And as a first grade teacher, I understand that safety comes first. And according to you, it is apparently safer to keep children isolated at home or in a non-isolated environment, such as a form of daycare that their parents now must pay for. So not only are the children burdened, but their parents are. And according to the CDC website, children are not the primary drivers of COVID-19 spread in schools or in the community, so why are they the ones being punished? You're forcing healthy children to isolate and to stay safe, and continuing to force their parents to homeschool them or find care for them, all for the apparent impending destruction that this virus could have. But since March, only 1.5% of the population in Elko County has contracted COVID-19, and of that 1.5%, 14% were age 0 to 19. So that leaves us with a contraction rate for ages 0 to 19 of 0.002%. And if education was a fundamental right listed in the Constitution, I think you would have all been overthrown by the students of Elko County, or maybe even Nevada. But it goes far beyond that. Schools provide students with a footing for autonomy and a realization of oneself. And those things cannot happen online from the setting of one's home. And if you're not aware of what's happening locally as far as finding care goes, kids are congregating in daycares. Why can't they congregate in schools? But I don't think that your decision was solely based on the safety of our students. I think it's because you weren't offered a good hybrid option, and I also think it's because of the recently created Senate Bill 4, which may hold teachers in schools liable for transmission of COVID-19. And I just think that we need to reverse or get rid of that bill, or make parents sign a waiver that says they won't sue us if their kid gets COVID, and come up with a better hybrid model, one that teachers and students can safely thrive. Maybe we can't be like Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, where school is in session, but other states have provided students, teachers, and parents with a choice of school setting to best suit their individual needs or circumstances. The state should support its citizens, and you have not been supportive. I have firsthand testimony from a parent running a daycare who would be taking the burden of educating 40 students at a time, all with different schedules, ages, and needs, that the superintendent of ECSD gave no information on how to operate her facility. This same operating club has been open since May and has not had one single case of a child getting sick. And I don't say infected because the definition of infected is affected with a disease-causing organism, and as of now, there's no evidence that COVID-19 leads to disease. And I want to end with a quote from this parent. Teachers are worried about getting COVID, but what about the club's employees? And your answer to her cannot be, well, just don't open. That's like telling an entire village to just stop taking care of each other and to not function. I don't want to tell you to think about what you've done, but rather really contemplate hard what you have not done for the citizens of Elko County.
Thank you. And you should stand and speak. We do appreciate your comments, and we do take all of them into consideration.
Thank you.
We wish we had better answers all the time, but please, thank you.
My name is Janae Riley. This is a quote from someone in a group on Facebook that is organized to help us congregate in this stupid time right now. And she says, I spent my work day helping the kids with their school day, so now I get to do my 10 plus hours of worth of work while they have dinner, bathe, and sleep. This is impossible. Today was just as much, if not more, of a nightmare than it was in the spring. I'm trying so hard to be positive with the kids, but there's nothing to be positive about. This is a mess for them, for us, for the kids. No one wins. Yes, everyone put in a lot of work to get here, but 6 to 8-year-old children have no business being here. They belong on a playground with other kids, sharing germs and getting head colds, learning to read real books they checked out from the library, having lunch in the cafeteria, writing in their journals rather than typing their thoughts and feelings, one poke of a letter on the keyboard at a time. This is wrong what Elko County School District did to these kids. I'm beyond any level of frustration I've even accurately described, and I can't let my kids see an ounce of it. I echo this because I have 4 children, and having to try to figure out their schedules on a Chromebook, and different teachers are using different platforms, even though they're supposed to use one type of platform. There's different platforms being used, and they all have different schedules. So I'm trying to balance lunch and getting this kid, because he can't freaking read, and getting this kid what he needs, and he can't read. But this one's over here on his own, completely on his own in 7th grade, when he has no support in any way, shape, or form. And it's just a mess. So if I can ask a question, what is the plan to get back? I know we're supposed to be here for 7 weeks, but at the end of the 7 weeks, it needs to be done. What is the plan to go back? Because Battle Mountain is going back, and they have a hybrid model, but they're not expecting the teachers or the parents to pick up the slack on the other days that they're not in school. They're going to school. We need to be in school. So what's the plan?
Janae, thank you for your comments, and I will answer. Obviously, all of us want to be back in school. All of us want our kids back in school, and we just have to follow the metrics that we receive from the state. That's the plan. We're going to keep an eye on those, keep watching, and move forward as quickly as we can once that opportunity is available.
So what is, like, right now, if other schools can be going to school, why can't we?
I will just answer this, and then we'll see if anyone else has a public comment. You know, other counties are in different situations than we are. That's basically the gist of what we can say. They're just in a different situation than we are with numbers. And we hope that numbers keep going down and we can go back. You know, that's what we all want. We want our kids back in school. We know our teachers want their kids right there with them. And that's the goal. We just have to be mindful of all of the metrics and everything else that we receive from the state and move forward from there. Is there anyone else that wishes to make a public comment?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Go for it, sister.
No, you go,
You
please.
got cooler pants than me.
Okay. All right, Kristen Birdsell. I teach science at Elko High School, and I also have 2 kids in the school district at Flagview in 5th and 6th grade. Well, Flagview at Adobe, because one of my kids is taking a class at Adobe too. And I'll just give the opposite viewpoint. I held a class today. You know, I did, honestly. Through Google Meets, almost all my kids showed up today. It wasn't ideal. I told them that, you know, I'd much rather have seen them in my classroom in front of me. But it's the right decision. It sucks, but it's the right decision. And they were all there, and we interacted. And I got dozens of little Flipgrid videos to go through with intros today that I've been going through and commenting on, and kids talking to each other and laughing on Google Meets. Already getting assignments submitted. There were a couple little hiccups. Most of those I was able to solve through a couple of emails back and forth. One of them I had to do a personal Google Meet with a kid and get them sorted out that way. Didn't take that much. I'm not saying that every class went that perfectly. I know Go Guardian crashed multiple times. You know, there were some problems and some hiccups, and that's high school. So, you know, those kids are hopefully a little more, you know, able to do that. I talked to our new chemistry teacher at length after school. He had a great day with all his kids. Almost all of them showed up. He was super excited and stoked, despite this being, he's a first-year teacher, and this was his first day teaching. And he still, was super excited and had kids that were super excited. I got home. I am lucky that I was able to find a UNR student who's doing online to go sort of supervise my kid. And yeah, it's not easy to put those schedules together for my kids. I got 3 of them at home right now, my 2 kids plus another one that I'm helping out their parents. And it was hard to get those schedules to work out right. I did it, posted it, they followed it today, they met all their teachers, they got to all their meets, they did all their assignments, they worked on math. They were super excited. How was your first day of school? They're like, it was good. Was it great? No. Would they rather be back in the classroom? Yes. But they weren't traumatized by it. They got some stuff done, and they feel like they can go forward tomorrow. I am involved in a lot of national PLN, professional learning networks, and those teachers, I just want to say thank you again for not only the time, but the hybrid. I don't know what I would have done if we would have had to done this 2 weeks ago. It would not have gone nearly as well. I've talked to many, many teachers over Zoom meets and whatever else that are facing hybrids and these choices of I've got 30 online and I've got 30 in a hybrid and I've got 30 here and I don't even know what's going. It's a mess. Those as a teacher, they don't know how to handle those. They don't know how to plan for 3 classrooms simultaneously. So while, yeah, I would much rather have seen my kids in person today and had real conversations face to face, we still had real conversations over Google Meets, and it went better than I thought. And I think going forward, I would rather do this than see a headline like I saw for Vegas today where there's, 8 kids now with multi-inflammatory syndrome down there. I don't want that to be one of my kids. We don't know which kid that's going to be. And this is a disease-causing virus. The science says that. As a science teacher and a science major, I can tell you that's the real science. The real science is we need to take this seriously. And it's not great, but I think it went really well under the circumstances.
Jack Riley, here to kind of see how everything works. I think it's kind of cute that at the beginning here, we had 12 people, we had 1 IT guy dedicated exclusively for this event, and we did have some hiccups before it started, correct? Not wrong. So with that, take that example and we can do the math and the science. Same 10, all adults that know how to point and click, then you take it and pick down to a 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade level. And now you have a complete circus as you try to get on at the appointed time on your personal computer, and your child's trying to find that out. Now we don't have dedicated IT guys sitting in the back of my room at my home trying to get that sorted out for me as my child's trying to get on the Zoom meeting or whatever it is. Now, we like to talk about the science of it, the 0.00, and let's keep going to the hundredths of positive infections, aka the antibodies, whether it's a proven case or they've built the immunity already. All right. So now let's think about this. We said that it was spoken. When the numbers get down to an acceptable level, what is that level? That's the question. And it's not this, it will be mandated from down from somewhere. That's what this little president, member, chairman, everyone is here for. We're not looking, because the timeline has been set. Weeks from now, we'll decide what we're doing by the numbers, by the mandating. It is the fear that's ruling. It is not, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, this is the headline. It is the fear that is ruling these courts, these children, these families. I can understand that. It should be understood. Don't get me wrong. We can go through the numbers. We can go through the science. The baseline is the fear of what repercussions might come down the pipe. And it's not of death or teeny tiny body bags. We could look at the deaths in Elko County and we would find them to be of the older generation with pre-existing conditions, or those that were in hospice care. I don't proclaim to be a pathologist, but my public school education and the math and science that was taught to me in a public school shows me the truth that it is a fear. Now I tell you what, if you notice, there are empty seats right here because my friends, my neighbors are exhausted of coming to meetings and not getting answers. That is why I am here. I would like some answers, and that is me asking at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. And we all want answers, and we're all seeking them all the time. Everyone's watching constantly and trying to make the best choices possible in the situation we're in. Is there any other public comment? We'll move on to item 2.1, receipt, review, and approval of the Elko County School District Test Security Plan for school year 2021.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I saw in there that it said there's invalidation for students that don't follow the security protocols. Is that also the case for students not taking the testing seriously? I know in the past we've invalidated tests due to students just filling in patterns of bubbles or doing all C down the column.
So any invalidation based on that is done on the back end. The testing that we're talking about for the testing security, back testing, that doesn't get graded on site. It gets graded obviously by the testing vendor. If they come up and if they identify any irregularities such as that, they inform us, and then we make the decision whether or not to invalidate that test. So.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and that is approved. Item 2.2 is receipt, review, and possible approval of the Indian policies and procedures for impact aid funding purposes.
Do we need two separate motions for this, for the liaison and the content of that?
Yeah, they're two separate items, but it's written here as a policies and procedures for funding purposes, unless the consultant can be under the procedures.
It looks like to me when it talks about, looking at the attachments, I think we can do it in one, but if
One.
that's incorrect, do we need two? Okay, just one. All right,
I move to approve.
thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question that I have is I was looking through that. I don't recall that the impact aid document being as extensive as what it is in this particular situation. Was there a specific reason why we've added to that, if in fact it is added to, and it looked that way to me?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to give you the answer to that. I'd have to compare the two, and I'm not sure. I have not heard anything that there's anything that was added in addition to it, but I can certainly look into that and let you know if anything, what specifically was added.
It seemed to have quite a bit more information in it. Going through, it was talking specifically about each one of the tribes and then going through, and it had some language in there that seemed to be pretty exclusive towards that. But that was the impression that I got as I was looking through it. So
Yeah,
if we could find out.
Yeah, I will. As I said, I wasn't informed of anything that had been added to it, but I can certainly look into it.
And I had the same concern about policy number 5. That seemed a little extreme, but maybe not with the communication.
This is the same item?
Yes.
Yeah, I can look into that too. Policy?
Yeah, policy number 5.
And as a sidebar, as we're going through and we're looking at these, in a number of instances, there's abbreviations, things like that, and we get enough of those as it is. And I don't know if there'd be a way to put a notation in there that, you know, what IES stands for or whatever, so.
So how would the board like to proceed?
That's what I was
Like to
wondering.
bring it back for a second
we need
reading?
to
Do we need-
defeat the motion and then table? Or this is first reading on this one?
It would be a first reading.
Well, we do have a motion on the floor with a second. Would you like to make a motion to bring this back for a second reading?
Can we just amend the motion? then?
Amend
May
it.
amend the motion.
Okay, so there are 3 items. I'll make sure that is on here, and that is more,
Just looking at
Creation for
policy
policy
5,
five?
is that reasonable? For
right,
especially you as the liaison?
sure. And then if there's been more added to it,
Additional
and then a
material.
definition of the abbreviations.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion to amend it to bring it back for a second reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to bring it back for a second reading. Any other discussion? All in favor of the amendment to bring it back for a second reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Thank you, Candace. Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that is approved. We will bring it back for a second reading. All right, item 2.3 is discussion and determination of the procedure to advertise the Board of Trustees District 3 vacancy for possible action.
Move to approve?
All right,
Second.
thank you. We have a motion of approval and a second. Any discussion from the board?
I was just wondering if one key phrase may need to be added, just that this can't be an employee of an Oakland County School District.
That is an important thing to add.
Okay.
I also noticed on the advertisement that it says no later than 2 p.m., but it doesn't specify a date. So,
And that's the thing, that's what we need to determine as a board, is to clarify that and specify dates when we will make that happen. So I'd invite the board to make recommendations.
If we address the announcement, is there adequate time before our next board meeting and itemize it as an agenda item at our next board meeting and begin that process of the interview or whatever? Would 2 weeks be adequate for notification?
The board can identify how long they want the announcement to be out, so if you'd like it to be posted for 2 weeks, we can do that.
I think that two weeks is a good time period, but with the caveat that I noticed that it would be advertised on the district website and the newspaper. Is that correct? Because I also think we need to reach out in other ways like social media, because many people in Elko County anymore don't get the newspaper. So that you're kind of limiting who's going to see it, I think. And maybe even have it on the radio. Those are just some suggestions to try to get it out there to more people.
Candace, I think that's a good suggestion, to make sure we advertise it in as many places as we can.
22nd, the date, we can't put it on that agenda because it needs to be agendized 3 days, 3 business days before the meeting.
Well, we could always put it on the agenda, and if we have to remove it, we can, if we don't have enough interest or anything else, but the board, as Dr. Robinson said, has can determine the amount of time it's advertised, so I guess we can say, it'll be advertised for a week and well, it'll still be advertised for 2 weeks, and people would still have the opportunity to put in their letter of interest up until the board meeting on the 22nd. I don't see why we'd need to have it in prior to that, as long as we have all those, well, maybe on the 21st, so the board has plenty of time to look over all of the applicants. So that would be my recommendation.
So I have a question, Madam Chairman, then if the letters of interest are in by say the 21st, then how does that process work? Will the interviewees then come forward to an actual board meeting to be interviewed, or will that be a closed session?
It's not a closed session, it's an open session, and the interviewees will show up at the board meeting in an open session. In the past, it hasn't been a special meeting, it's just been a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. And if we chose to do a special meeting, we could do so, but in the past, it's always just been at a regular board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So do we have notes of what needs to be clarified in the advertisement?
Yep, we're gonna add that they can't be an employee of ECSD, and we'll be increasing where we will be advertising, and we're putting a due date at the end of the day on September 21st.
Any other things to add? Or items we may need to consider? I will ask the board if, it will be agendized. If we receive things by 2 o'clock on the 21st, does that give you enough time to look over the letters of interest and everything in time for the board meeting on the 22nd? Okay, I'm getting nodding heads. Candace, is that sufficient time for you?
Yes, that'll work.
Okay. Great. All right, any other discussion on that item? I will just make a reminder that the person who is appointed, again, will interview in a public meeting. It will not be a closed meeting, and they'll have the opportunity to come before the board and interview, and anyone that's in the audience, whether it's virtual or in this room, will be able to hear those interviews. And that person will serve to the end of 2020, because that would be the completion of Mr. Fish's term, and then we will have to do this process again. It could be the same person if they choose to be reappointed, or the process can start over and other people can apply as well, beginning in that the first meeting in January, and then that person would serve a 2-year term and have to go on the ballot after the 2 years. So I just want to make sure that's clarified for anyone who's interested in the position. And I know we've got several people that have expressed interest, and we appreciate the interest and hope that anyone who lives in District 3 and is interested will submit their application or their letter of interest and come and interview with us. We'd love to see you. We always appreciate people being involved, and this decision-making process that we go through up here isn't something we just do, at the drop of a hat. It takes a lot of time and a lot of thinking. Board members spend a lot of time talking to their constituents. They talk to teachers, they talk to parents, they talk to students, they talk to stakeholders all over the county. And so all the decisions we make take a lot of time. And I would encourage anyone who wants to sit on this board, please put your name in and be involved in the process, become part of the process, so that you have an understanding of what it's like to be a board member, and an appreciation for our staff in Elko County that works so hard to take care of our kids, take care of their employees. So please, if you're interested and you're in District 3, We would love to have a whole meeting full of interviews. All right, we have anything else to clarify on that? Okay, we have a motion to proceed with that being posted as soon as possible, tomorrow morning, this evening, with those changes in place. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that announcement will go out as soon as possible. Item 3.1 is our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and our consent agenda is approved. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director. Mr. Wine.
We had a legislative committee meeting the other night, and the appointed boards, school boards being appointed, is getting some more traction. And NASB wants to be part of the conversation, and their first stance is no. But if we have to give in and try to at least be part of what's gonna come of it. Some talking points with the conversations we want to have with legislatures is to if we have to appoint a board member, to try to keep it in local control. And the training accountability, they're gonna make it, they want to make it more, make board members more accountable for the training and heavier penalties if you don't get the training in the first and the third year, to try to prove to the legislature that we do work hard at this and that there is a lot of time and effort put into it. NASB wants to oversee the training with the Nevada Department of Education approval. And there's, the penalties, there's a fine, money involved in it, or a 3-strike deal and you get removed from the board. And another talking point is make it a requirement that board members must have a high school diploma. If we're overseeing education, we ought to be educated. And then somebody came up with limit terms to 2 years, but able to serve for 6 terms to make it more of a challenge to, a 4-year term can, sometimes board members can get comfortable. Make it a 2-year term, they won't get as comfortable and they'll work harder at it, was the thought process of that. If it comes down to appointing a school board member, keeping the boards at 5 or 7 members, all the school boards in the state are either 5 or 7 members, keeping them the same, but having one appointed at large by the board. That means we would have to redistrict Elko County to pull that off. And the big push has been appointed school boards for Washoe County and Clark County, but Article 11 of the Nevada Constitution says that all school systems must be uniform, so if they want to appoint Clark County School Board, they're going to appoint everybody's. And the push has been for the governor and the legislature to appoint school board members. And this is to try to negotiate with them to try to keep more local control over it if it comes to that. That's where NASB stands on it. If you've got, want to add something to it, I can take that back to them.
Did they say what role they want the appointees to fulfill? Like an education expert, a financial expert, or?
It'd be just another board member. And there was talk about all of them being at large, but then you would have a neighborhood in one school district maybe gain control of the school board. So they wanted to keep the districts. There was, you know, about, if you ran unopposed, you had to receive at least 50% of the vote, but nobody could come up with what 50% would be if it was the registered voters or who voted in that election. If you look at results from elections, it's all over the place. You couldn't be able to come up with that. It's gaining more traction, and there is a big push in the legislature so that the state would have more control. That's what it's all about.
Any thoughts from the board? I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll let somebody else share first. Candace? All right.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on record as,
Nobody
especially
is.
if it's coming from the state.
Nobody is.
Yeah.
All right, and I will just echo that as well. You know, school boards are meant to be made up of people who are just part of the community where the schools are. And we have professional educators who, you know, it's their job to be here, to facilitate learning, all those things, but the people in the communities need to have the opportunity, if they so desire, to serve on the school board, to be able to run and serve on the school board. And the governor and the legislature has no idea what's going on in Elko County, which is why we're in the mess we're in right now, right? We are sitting here, people are frustrated. You know, some people had a great first day of school, some people really didn't. And that is coming from the governor and our legislature. And so if you think this is bad, having all of our board appointed, or even one or two of our board appointed, from someone that's sitting in Carson City that has no idea what's going on in Elko County, things will just get uglier. So my thoughts are, we fight that as hard as we can. There is no reason for our governor or our legislature to be appointing a local school board, and we definitely need to keep local control as much as we can. Any other thoughts?
Amen.
So Ira, I guess that's what you take back.
Right.
Elko County is not okay with appointed boards.
That's all the good news I have.
Okay, all right. However, we are willing to do training, and we're glad to participate in the training and appreciate NASB providing that training for our boards, because they know what's going on. All right, we'll move on to item 4.2, items from board members.
I was just gonna say, thank you for doing those Friday updates. They've been very informative and really help me do my job, actually, and reach out to people and be able to have discussions with community members that maybe I'm not aware of the issue, but your updates are doing that. Have you considered doing that for the school district as a whole? Not, obviously not our version with the confidential information, but the sanitized version?
Yes.
Okay.
We are very fortunate that we have a great partnership with Nevada Gold Mines, and we're working on a project understanding that communication is something that we hear is very important to the community, and it is. And so we want to be able to facilitate more and more communication, a communication that's going to be more frequent and of greater value to our families. So we are working on a project with Nevada Gold Mines and being able to have somebody help facilitate that. So
Awesome.
it's coming.
Okay, good deal. And then the only other thing I was going to share with you all, I talked to a parent at just before I came over here, and she was concerned about her kindergartner, first grader, and just the fact that they really didn't want to participate in the on-screen time. And I told her, you got to remember, just like if we were live, you'd be doing routines and procedures. So the more this becomes a routine for them in the next few weeks, the better it'll be. So I was glad to hear the positive things, and I know we have to work on some of the things that are occurring that might have been negative this first day, but it's only the first day. So we've got to keep in mind that our teachers are working very hard to make this seamless and make it a good education experience for our students of Elko County. heard a lot more positive stories than negative stories today, so it's good. And it was fun seeing all the first day pictures too, from parents, to them at their desks.
Any other items from board members?
Yeah, I had a,
Go ahead, Candace.
I just had a couple of things. One, and I know Dr. Robinson is going to address this, I'm sure, but I've heard quite a few things today about the T-Mobile hotspots. They don't work in the rural areas. I know here in Ruby Valley, the only cell service we get is AT&T. So I think they're on it and they're going to address it, but I know there were a lot of issues with that today with the hotspots. And the other thing that I had was, I do have a report from the Ruby Valley School. And so this is one of the schools where the kids actually went back in person today. And the report I have is very positive. Apparently everything went very well. All the kids were really good about wearing the masks, staying in their desks. You know, things did change a lot. You know, they can't just get up and wander around like they've been used to. They have to raise their hand to go to the restroom, things like that. But apparently the first day was a huge success. And the other thing I wanted to comment on there was that, I'll tell you what, that teacher and that aide worked very hard for 2 weeks, and they had to remove a lot of items from the school in order to make sure that they could meet the social distancing guidelines. So they removed computers, they removed bookcases, they removed a refrigerator they had for kids' lunches. I mean, there was a lot of stuff they had to purge out of that building to make it work. So I just want to give a plug for them. They did a lot of work and it seems to be going very well. So that's all I had.
That's great to hear. You know, we started the 4-day school weeks with our rural schools and kind of to see how that went, and some of the other schools have come on board, and it's good to hear that things are going well with our rural schools as far as being in school right now and being able to function at a good level. Okay, Mr. Cooney?
With regards to one of the things that Mr. Riley had mentioned right there, looking for specific answers. I have a grandson in Washoe County, first grade. Washoe County's gone against the health department's recommendation and also against the governor's recommendation, and have those kids going back in full-time, K or pre-K through 4th grade. I too have a question about at what point do the metrics show us that it is going to be safe? Because it seems as though if we look at it, our positivity rate and the test rate and all of that, those numbers can be manipulated. And I think I get an impression that perhaps they have been, and I don't know the answer to that, but we need to establish, I think, as a board, that here's a point, and you know, when we passed that motion, the discussion went that, yeah, we're going to be in this mode for X number of weeks, but we need to reevaluate it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. But I feel responsible that as a board, you know, if we jump into something too soon, there's going to be ramifications. If we wait too long, there are going to be just as many ramifications. So if they can clear up, and I understand that the county commission has requested some things, that the committee for the COVID-19 committee here, that if they come up with some specifics about the numbers of tests and the reporting not only the positive tests, but also the negative tests at an increased number, because as it seems now, they're not testing anyone unless they're showing symptoms. And to me, just saying if they're showing symptoms, the percentage of positives are going to be way higher than if they were just testing the general population. But the dynamics and the metrics that are being used right now, I think have to be really looked at and justified before we either keep kids distance learning or move them into the hybrid for the older kids. And it'd be ideal if we get our pre-K through 4 in the classrooms. That's what our objective is, and it should be everybody's. So.
So Jim, would you like to direct staff to work on preparing those kind of metrics? Is that what you're getting at? So that we have a better idea and have a better answer?
Yeah, would that be possible to come up with, utilizing the governor's directives, obviously, if it's 26 and 27, or if he's up to 29 or 30 now. But yeah, to bring that back and say, if we reach a point A at that particular point, we're gonna go back or implement hybrid rather than distance.
So, yes, that is positive. That's something that we're working towards already, is identifying, some metrics, whether they be the metrics that are happening here locally or some of the other challenges that we came across as we were creating the plans.
Right.
So we've already begun talking about it. As a matter of fact, as our central office and committee for the reopening, we're back to meeting again to talk about the pieces that we need to have in place so that we can phase back in. And, because everybody's goal is to get children back in school. And we've got to look at how we can do that in the best way, what metrics we would follow, and then what are the steps that will go into place in order to be able to do that
The
effectively,
transition
safely.
between the two.
Yeah. Now, in the distance learning, our pre-K students are coming back hybrid. So we do have some hybrid components. Our CTE programs, we've been approving proposals. Mr. McEnany has been going through and making sure they have the pieces in place so that our students in the CTE programs can be working in a hybrid model to get that hands-on experience that they really need in order to be successful. And then in some cases, we have our students with special needs, depending on the level of need and the specific services that they need to provided. We have students that are coming in sometimes in person, sometimes for a couple hours at a time, but a hybrid kind of mix. So we're already phasing in hybrid where we can, based on metrics and what we're taking a look at. And we will continue moving in that direction with the ultimate goal of getting our kids back in school.
And I don't know if as we develop and get those metrics identified, at that point, that may be a really good item to do, a letter to the community. So that answers the questions that people have, and we're able to address that in a more appropriate way, I guess.
Right, and yes, and also to present in a board meeting so that the community that are watching remotely, there are many people that still can't come in. So we want to be able to get that information out so they can see what we're talking about. So we're going to continue with the communication.
And could we have an update on that at our next board meeting then?
Sure.
On the agenda? That would be great. And anything prior to that goes out to the community, we'll just be glad to have that information. I know they will as well. Thank you.
One other item. With the election coming up, we have the pay-as-you-go initiative that's out there, and early voting starts on the 17th of next month, which we need to get that. I think that we have some members out of the community that have expressed an interest in participating on the Citizens Committee for the pay-as-you-go bond initiative. So I would think that we need to have that on an agenda item to go through and to establish that. And of course, I thought of that after the agenda had already been prepared for this. So I look at the calendar, and as we sometimes do, where did that week go? So.
Definitely something to have on the next agenda as well. Any other items from board members?
I just want to take a moment to thank the Elko County School District staff and the families and the kids for a pretty good day. I know it wasn't perfect, and I know it was hard, and I know right now there are teachers at home crying, and I know that there's parents at home crying, and I know that there's kids that have cried today. And if we could change it, we would. None of us want to be here. But I've seen so many great attitudes, so much positivity, and it's really meant a lot. I mean, it's hard to sit here and take a lot of negativity about impossible decisions that you've made, and to see the community come together and lift each other up has been so inspiring, and it makes me grateful to sit in this seat because I have a front row seat to it. And I just want to thank everyone that has worked their absolute knuckles to the bone to get this done, and for parents that slapped that smile on and cried in the bathroom later, because that made all the difference. And I'm really lucky. I have 2 kids in the district. One of them is special needs. They both had great days today. They didn't care that it was through a computer. They were just so excited to meet their teachers. And their teachers have been amazing. They have put on the brave face, and they have shown up, and they've made themselves more available even than I could have ever dreamed that they would make themselves available. And I know there are hundreds of people that are doing that right now for us. And I appreciate it, and I just want to thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart, because you guys are making it work, and I knew you would. And it's just incredible to see. And sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's just really beautiful.
Thank you, Tammy. And I will just echo many of those sentiments. I am so grateful for the teachers and the staff that have just made this happen. This is definitely something that no one would have imagined, a year ago at this time, and they've just made it happen. And yes, there have been hiccups. I have 6 kids that were all trying to use our Wi-Fi today. We had some times that it just didn't quite work, but we just rolled on. We made it happen with all 6 of my kids. Some of the meetings didn't go as planned. The timing wasn't right, but we had a conversation, last week with my kids. Hey, this isn't going to be perfect. Everybody's working on this for the first time. The teachers are trying to work out the kinks. Everybody's trying to make this happen. Our internet is not amazing in Elko County, and we all knew that there were going to be some hiccups. But I said, let's give everybody some grace, and let's just do our best to make everything work. And it was really a successful day. My kids enjoyed the interaction with their teachers. Like Tammy said, their teachers were so available and so amazing. They enjoyed being able to see their classmates and interact with them. And, my high school kids, even, they were so happy to be back in school. And in fact, I think in a different way, kind of made it really just a unique first day for all of them. And so I really appreciate the work that's been done. I know there are going to be struggles as we continue in this distance learning model. I know it's not going to be easy. I know we're all going to have to work together, but I got both positive and negative feedback from today about different things. But for the most part, the feedback was very positive, and people saying, hey, we're doing our best, we're making it work. You know, yes, I cried tears, a lot of them, but I'm just gonna make it happen. And, you know, we really, really appreciate the teachers and everyone that's worked so hard to make this happen, because we know it's not easy. And sitting up here as parents, we know it's not easy, trying to make everything work. So just a big thank you to all of the Elko County School District, parents, students, teachers, everybody. It was, I would say, for what it could have been, it was an amazing first day. And I think we'll just get better and better as time goes on. Any other items from board members? All right, we'll move on to item 5.1, our superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you. So my report is on the first day of school, and as you've heard from our community, it was filled with challenges, as we expected. As you said, Elko County is not known really for its strong internet connection, so that was certainly a challenge. We worked to be prepared for that with hotspots. We're finding that even those are creating some challenges for our families, the ones that we've provided. So we are asking for families who are experiencing the connectivity issues, particularly with our hotspots, to please contact your school, to contact our tech department here. We have solutions, and they're geared for the unique circumstances for each family. So please contact us, because we've been able to remedy some of the challenges. Actually, we've been successful in remedying all of the challenges. So I want to say to the professionals, the hard-working professionals of ECSD, we commend you all, the amount of work that you've put into this. This has been difficult and challenging for everybody, as we've said, but they're putting so much work in their commitment into making this experience as successful as we possibly can for students and for families. And so I really want to acknowledge how hard they've worked. And to the parents and caregivers, we know that this is not an easy time, and we sit here so impressed with the resiliency of this community, and thank you for that, and know that we'll continue to work to make the situation that we're in as successful as we possibly can for our community, for our students, and for our professionals who are working hard and facing their own challenges in that. Overall, it was a good day. Certainly, we are keeping track of and logging technical issues and concerns that people have, so we can take a look at patterns. We can see areas in which we need to improve and put our resources so that we can make improvements. And we're making sure that we're finding resolutions. So I just want to encourage to please contact the tech department, contact our office, and we'll continue to work in that manner. We've developed some incredible resources out of our Family Engagement Center, and I would like to point this out to families and let you know that more is coming. So if you go to our website, and we'll put something on the front of the website so you're not going to have to search. But for right now, if you go under the top tab, you'll see Family. If you bring that menu down, you'll see Family Engagement Center. And there's a tab that says Educational Resources. And there's some terrific resources to help families figure out how to get into the platforms. We have 2 platforms that our teachers are utilizing. Gives you tutorials and getting into the platforms and other great resources. We will continue to add to that. Our Family Engagement Center is an incredible resource for families and for educators, and we encourage you to bookmark the Family Engagement Center, bookmark that page so you can get to it easily, and be watching. We'll continue to fill it with more and more resources as we go on.
And Dr. Robinson, how do people contact the tech department if they're having technical issues?
Do we have a separate number, or they're contacting the office?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
The information technology number is 775-778-9693. Option 1 will bring you to Infinite Campus Help. Option 2 will bring you to the generic help desk.
Okay. Thank you.
On our web page, if you look under departments and go to information technology, that same phone number is right here.
Okay. And I will just repeat it in case people couldn't hear. The phone number for the IT is 775-778-9693. And there are options there to choose from so that you have help with technical issues if you need it. And it's great to hear that our IT guys were able to resolve all the issues that they had brought to them today. That's pretty amazing. Anything else?
It was a big day.
It was a big
Oh,
day.
Mr. Mackey.
The EOP liaison.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's right. I had mentioned in Friday's update that we need an emergency operations, the manual liaison from the board, and we're gonna need to have that person identified.
We can have a volunteer for the emergency operations liaison.
Nominate Jim.
Thank you, Brian.
Do you accept?
Yes.
Alright. Is there anyone that wants to take that job from Jim? If not, we'll just let him have it.
Better be an emergency if you try.
Alright. We don't need a vote on that, we're just appointing you. Thank you. Alright, anything else? Dr. Robinson, is that, you got it?
That,
I just had questions about the
Construction.
yes, thank you. Casey, was there anything being considered while students are off campus, like extra, that's not on that list that we're seeing, or? I know you were able to get some of those projects done already.
You say that again one more time?
Was there anything that wasn't on that list that's in the board docs that you guys are doing extra while students aren't on campus to get ahead, so to speak?
We're doing a lot of the major maintenance on the equipment stuff, yeah. We're
Okay.
doing a lot of extra stuff that way.
And the other thing I was wondering about, have ventilation systems been checked before we start bringing students back in?
Yeah, we've checked them all where we can, we're upgrading the filters.
Oh, good, excellent. Okay. That's all I had.
Any other questions from the board on that item? All right, we'll move on to item 6.1, approval of the accounts payable.
I move to approve the accounts payable.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and discussion, or in a second. Any discussion? Abstentions, disclosures? I will be abstaining as I have a family member whose employer is listed on the accounts payable, and I am also listed on the accounts payable for travel reimbursement. Any other discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And the chair abstains, but the accounts payable are approved. Item 7.1 is a final opportunity for comments from the public. Please.
Janae Riley. So I have a couple people asking me, so it's from our understanding that part of the reason we're doing distance learning is that because our return or reopen school plan was not submitted on time to the governor or the state school district office or whatever. Was that ever submitted?
it was submitted and it was submitted on time.
So, because that's like I've heard from a lot of places, including the news, that we were the only ones that didn't get it in on time.
That was the county commissioners didn't submit a county plan on time.
Okay, so then as far as the reopening plan goes, do we have one? Like, I know you said we're in the process of getting to the point, but once we get to the point that we can go back to school, what is that plan? And how is it going to be shared with the families? I know you talked about communicating better. However, we feel like we're not being communicated with, and we feel like the plan has never been laid out to us. Where in one of the meetings, someone asked that question, and I don't remember who it was that said it, but it was said that we don't need to know, that's our job, not yours. But as parents, we do need to know what the plan is. And another thing that I have a problem with is the IEP situation in the meetings, because I've been to several and listened to several, that it was stated that the IEP children will not be left behind. I disagree with that. I had to spend hours and hours on the phone to get my IEP student, his IEP, like even in the process of working. And luckily, I got to get my kid into school, but that's because I was a squeaky wheel. So what about the parents that aren't being the squeaky wheel and don't know that they have that option?
Okay, so for the first part, the plan that we submitted, we presented in the board meeting, and we presented the different models that we were required to create. So one of them was the hybrid model. So, and that was the one that really would be the transition, should the board decide to transition into the hybrid, that would be the model that we'd be going into. We're going to be meeting because we recognize there's some things about that model that may not be as effective as when we first laid out the plan and the committee was meeting over the summer. So there may be some changes to that, and that's what I mentioned, that we're starting to meet already to make those sorts of adjustments. But that plan is on the website, and we did talk about it. So we're going to be making those modifications to it so that we can make a safe and effective transition back into school at whatever point that may be. And those updates and modifications is what I mentioned. I'd like to be able to present them to the board, not just in a letter to the community, though I have sent letters with that plan attached to it, but I'd like to be able to continue again to present it to the community in a board meeting so that the community has the opportunity to see it. And of course, any plans and modifications that we have, we'll continue to send out to the community if we've done. As far as the IEP goes, I'm going to turn to Mr. Smith and say if there are concerns that families have about the IEP process, that they really would need to contact their caseworker. That those are all decided upon individually as an IEP team, as I'm sure you know your experience. So that would be the recommendation that I would make. I don't know, Mr. Smith, if you want to add to that.
The same thing. Contact the case manager, go through that process. And you and I talked on Thursday or Friday, I can't remember what day it was, but I would tell them the exact same thing. That's the process that needs to go through, because those are made on individual basis for each kid and the needs that they have. And it's not about being a squeaky wheel necessarily. It's a collaborative group conversation. That's always been the case with those proposals. Obviously, this year represents such a different situation than we have in traditional years. There's a lot of potentially different options available. But like Dr. Robinson mentioned earlier, we have several different options of whether there's some in-person time for kids to come to school, or if it's all distance. There's a lot of different options all along a continuum from one end to the other. So those options are available, and it's part of a conversation that takes place in that IEP process.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
I just was wondering why.
Make sure you say your name.
Oh, sorry. Tara Leland. I was just wondering why it was chosen to do all of quarter one online. Is that just because that was like a convenient cutoff? And is there any possibility that the children will come back before the end of October? Or I mean, it's like I'm an optimist, I guess. I don't know.
The primary reason of setting it for a 9-week period of time, we had hundreds of people emailing us and presenting here during the board meeting to get a solid answer. And we decided, in order to answer all those questions, to take the question mark out of it, we're going to be distance ed. It's going to be for this length of time, actually with the caveat that if we meet the metrics, we move into the hybrid at that point. And so it was to give some basis to everybody's questions, and the questions stopped at that particular point. So I don't know how else to answer that other than it gave, completion to the questions. So,
do you think you'll extend the school year by 2 weeks since the children were delayed by 2 weeks? the school year is delayed, so we're gonna make that time up,
The
right?
Department of Education has addressed that already,
Oh, okay,
and no is the answer to that, correct?
okay. I just had one other clarification question, like when you were talking to the superintendent about the numbers, like that were coming from above, maybe from the senator, I wasn't sure, but you said 27, 28, 29, or 30, what were you referring to?
The directives from the governors,
The directives?
yeah, the governors
emergency
have these
directives.
emergency
They're numbered.
directives.
Okay, I'll look those up later, okay, thank you.
I think they're all on the Nevada legislature
They are.
website.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
What do you mean?
What's your name?
Captain Jack Riley. So, appreciate everybody's comments today, they were good. One question for the Dr. Robinson. You said that you were going to be working, so we already talked that the governor has some directives and some numbers in his head of where that's supposed to go. And you said that you guys were working on where those points would cross in our local area and when we would open up and when those numbers would make sense to us. Is that correct?
We're working on, as the board had asked, to come up with the criteria, the metrics that we utilize for get transitioning back in as quickly as possible. So that's something that we're going to be identifying.
Excellent. When can we expect those answers?
Well, as I mentioned, we're starting to meet already, and the request was that we'd have an update at the next board meeting.
All right, I'll make sure I ask the question about that day on the next meeting.
Madam Chair, I just want to ask a question. Is public comment question and answer session, or is it public comment?
And, you know, this is one time, I think, in the past, we've always treated public comment as a time when everyone can make a comment. It doesn't necessarily get an answer from the board. And that's pretty standard in any public meeting. Public comment, you can make whatever comment you want, but you won't necessarily get an answer. I think in an effort to try to alleviate some of the stress that a lot of people are under right now, we're not changing public comment permanently to be a question and answer session, and we'd prefer to, you know, take your comments and be able to internalize them. But at the moment, I think we are just trying to help people not feel so much stress, because it's a very stressful time. And so I appreciate
I just think there's a
Geisler.
better
Yeah.
venue, that the site principals probably, we're just a policy-making body. We don't deal with the nuts and bolts. And so the other one too is comments from these things. We don't have any record of who is asking or making those comments, so people that are attending should be aware that those have to be identified as people, actual people on the other end of those text messages. So as a board member, I get frustrated because we're hearing the same things, even though you say you're listening, we're hearing the same things over and over and over again that have been answered at lots of board meetings. I appreciate the questions, but there are better avenues to be able to get those answered.
Thank you, and that's, you know, that is obviously a great recommendation to reach out to your site administrators and try to get your questions answered. You know, start with your teacher, your administrator, go through that chain of command, because, you know, if you're having questions and issues, they want to know too. I've already had teachers reach out to me saying, please give us feedback. I want to know what's working for your kids. I want to know what's not working. So please give us feedback. And I think that can be general across the board. Your teachers want to hear from you. They want to hear from your students. I know high school teachers love to get an email from their student instead of the parent saying, hey, I'm having this issue. So definitely reach out to your teacher, reach out to your administration. You know, we're glad to hear your questions. We're glad to have you participate. But I appreciate that comment, and I think it's important that everyone knows there is an avenue that you can take that, you know, you don't have to wait for 2 weeks to come talk to the board. You can email your teacher, or, you know, get them on Class Dojo or whichever platform they're using to communicate with you, and start that conversation there. So, thank you, Mr. Zeisler. All right, any other items?
One final thing. It was mentioned that most individuals are looking at the social media and Facebook that's out there right now. there's as much misinformation as there is good information. And I believe that Mr. McEnany had mentioned during one of our previous board meetings, check out the Facebook for Elko County School District, rather than just people reporting news and things like that, because it's going to be the only way that we can make sure that you're able to get the right information and to address your concerns.
Any other public comment? Again, we appreciate you being here with us in whatever venue you're joining us, and we appreciate hearing from you. We wish everybody the best as we go into day 2 of our distance learning model. And like I said earlier, just know it's going to get better from here on out, and we're going to make things work. And as we get closer to being able to move back into face-to-face education, we are all looking forward to that. Item 8.1 is adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Sorry, Candace, I didn't hear your yay or nay.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair votes aye, and we are adjourned. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.